Good evening, known world. I am Excellency Rahmut al-Tayyiba, coming to you from the Kingdom of Artemisia in the Barony of Bronzehelm in the frozen, snowing northern Artemisia. With me today is my amazing guest, Ladyship Isgerthr, aka Izzy! Izzy, would you please introduce yourself to our audience?
Well, hello there. I am Isgerthr or Isa, depending on the days. Service person is Isgerthr. Silly old name that no one can say. So my easier name is my nighttime name, Isa the drummer, or Izzy. Many people just call me. I play out of the Barony of Sentinel's Keep in the frozen tundra of northern Artemisia. And happy to be here.
All right. Well, we're happy to have you today. We're going to have some fun today talking about a couple different topics, but yet all related at the same time regarding retention as we walk down this road together.
Yes.
So, Isa, do you want to tell us just a little bit about your SCA background?
Sure. So I've been playing for almost 9 full years now. But I had a lifetime of nonprofit service experience. So when I came into the SCA, I kind of jumped in with both feet, and I've done quite a bit of stuff in social media. I'm a bard and a drummer. I do dabble in a bunch of other arts, takes lots of classes and stuff, but my main hat that I've worn for the most part is I'm the Kingdom of Artemisia's youth minister. So I've been doing that now for a long time, either in the north as northern deputy or in now as the head person in the kingdom. So
and yet, again, we must go ahead and explain that the views and opinions expressed are those of the participants and do not reflect any official policy or position of the SCA Incorporated.
Yes, I'm here as Izzy.
Not as.
Not as the official. Even though that's what we're going to talk about, hopefully, is youth and families.
Well, we are, because part of retention isn't just older players. Part of retention is the children born into the SCA or children of individuals who join the SCA. So
absolutely.
They're kind of the lifeblood. I mean, it's not just newcomers, it's children. They are the future.
Yep.
Now, we kind of have a couple sticky wicky conversations to have today, I think.
We do.
We do.
So, the big, huge elephant in the room about youth and families. Do we want to just jump right in?
We can totally jump right in. Okay. I'm okay with that.
So first, I just wanted to say that before we actually address that specific thing, I think we have some other issues that have always been around, at least what I've seen in the SCA. And that comes from my point of view from being of a certain age that I hate to admit to, but my persona is much younger. But the SCA really was getting formulated during a time when people parented differently. Everybody took their kids everywhere, but they didn't really watch them. They took them everywhere, and then they said, go away until the streetlights come on, sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. The paths of feral children in the SCA.
Yes, so there were feral children running everywhere.
It was kind
of also that age group, like my mother was of the age where, we were also raised, sort of children should be seen and not heard. You kids go over in that corner and entertain yourselves and be quiet over there because the adults are going to sit here and have adult conversation. And that really has changed over the last few decades, in particular, where people, like my children sat at the table with us and engaged in the conversation with the adults and stuff. And so we have this huge span of age groups sometimes, especially at smaller events where you'll have this group of older people who would prefer that the kids just be quiet and go away so they can sit and talk and visit. And then you've got younger people who have kids, and there's
Babes
got
in
to be,
arms.
yeah, and there's got to be stuff for everybody to do and everybody to be happy. So,
Well, and
you know,
I don't know if it's maybe just me, but there were kind of for a long time seemed to be like there are kids' activities, and then there's adult activities, and there's not true family activities, you know, where, or if there was, it always conflicts with something.
yeah. And that's a big huge thing that we have is um some families want to be fully engaged in what their kids are doing, so they want the youth activities to be happening when they're not busy trying to do something else, so that they can be engaged and do stuff with their kids. And some people love the idea that you're going to have youth activities during fighting, because then that way the kids are engaged while the fighting's going on. But then that brings up whole other things about turning your kids over to other people. And so that therein goes the other issues. And so when I first joined the SCA, um, I was spoiled at my first couple of events because they were fabulously geared towards things for kids to do. And so I thought, this is a fabulous thing for families to do. And then I went to my third event and there was not a single youth activity plan. And I went, oh. And I started really kind of going, okay, well, then I started putting my hand up and all right, then this needs to be changed.
Yeah.
But during that period of time, it was right after, I don't know a lot of the specifics about it, but there was a big lawsuit based on some very, very inappropriate behavior by some adults, molesting some children at events, is what I understand. And so for a long, long time, and at the society level, unfortunately, I think we are still suffering from some of the effects of that, because we don't still have a society counterpart to what I do as a kingdom level. And then because of that, the society instituted the 2 deep rule and background checks and lots of things that came down on that needed to happen for
Yes,
security
definitely.
things to help keep the kids safe and help the parents feel like their kids are safer. But then other people think of that as too much work or it's too hard. I've heard that comment. It's too hard to get a background check. It's not.
No,
Totally
easy
easy.
peasy.
Totally easy. And so there's just a lot of misconceptions, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And then COVID hit. And then recently, the biggest elephant in the room, I guess, that we should talk about is we recently have had a youth combat officer in one of the kingdoms who was caught and arrested for child pornography.
And our hearts go out to
Our hearts go out to them,
everyone. Like
everyone involved. I can't even imagine
no.
what that does to a group and what that does to the parents. And I mean, it's one of the reasons I've always been involved in youth stuff too, is because I'm just
To keep your kids safe.
keep your kids safe, so it's horrific to think about.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think we have a perfect dream for anybody of any age. It's just we have to get through this hump of figuring out how to do it so that it's safe for everybody and everybody's having a good time.
Definitely. If you were to, notwithstanding the horrific incident in Avakal at this time, what would you say the biggest impact that COVID has had on families and participation in the SCA?
Well, I think that there was there was a lot of online content that was created during the break. Not a lot of it was focused towards families. And so I have, that's one of the reasons why I'm going to be doing a new show.
Which
Um,
we will talk about
we
more.
will talk about. Um, and I've shared as many youth classes and everything else. But one of the problems in specific that I saw that happened with COVID was we were trying to get the YAFA program, the Youth and Family Achievement Program, going. And because we could not guarantee safety and the two deep rule, we were not allowed to do anything virtually with youth during the pandemic.
Well, and Cal just popped in a comment about saying how specifically in the Kingdom of Meridies, they had some rules about not having any virtual youth activities because of similar reasons.
Because
Because
exactly that.
you
Yep.
can't control the youth content and ensure that it's the too deep and that it's being relayed by somebody responsible.
Yep.
Because it's hard to figure out, okay, does this person already have their background check before they made this content? And
Yep. It was just too hard to control. So the society just shut it down. And so there's not a lot of content out there during that was geared towards kids. And then on top of that, as we get started up again, the delay in vaccinations for youth was so far down that we have people who are just unwilling to take their kids or unwilling to
risk their kids.
Yeah. So
I mean, they're that elderly and youth highest at risk groups.
Yep.
So whether vaccination or not.
So we couldn't do anything with them in person, and we couldn't do anything with them virtually. And so my fear is that we are going to lose some in droves, unfortunately. So yeah, I hope that doesn't happen. I would hate to see that, because I always thought that, and one of the things that drew me into this was that it was a really, this idea that my kids would be away from their computers and having real conversations with real people, and fresh air, and and the whole honor and chivalry and
and service,
service, hauling things for other kids. I mean, and they both got it because of me being a youth officer. So they've both had, in fact, I think it drove the older one away a little bit. Mom, do I have to haul all this stuff?
Why do I gotta carry everything?
Yeah. But I actually have over
Both
the
your
years
children
developed, I have a little small army of people that come and meet me when I walk in an event now and say, do you have stuff to carry in? And I hand them my keys and say where I park, and they go do it for me. So
but
there's that.
Both your younger children are amazing individuals. Every event that I've ever been at with them has, like, watching them grow and blossom into the adults they're becoming, as shocking as it is saying that, because I have the same situation, is just, it's breathtaking and awe-inspiring.
Oh, thank you.
So you've done good, Mama.
Well, I try to lead by example with them. I never say go do something that I wouldn't go do. Although like the hauling stuff in and out of the place, I'm not supposed to do that, and I'm happy to not do that. So.
Oh, and it looks like other people share our same feeling. Getting away from screens is one of the biggest reasons for coming to the SCA as a family, because they can see their kids running around together. Brana, you are 100% correct. And
absolutely.
And it was great seeing kids run around together at 12th night.
Yeah. And, coronation, that was so fun at the last coronation. And, just because we got to actually have one night of the camping, or a couple of nights of camping, and that, pack of kids climbing the rock wall behind court.
That's really cool.
That was pretty cool. And I'm a sucker for babes in garb. Little kids ones in garb just make me, I don't know what it is.
Well, it's kind of interesting now too, because we're seeing second gen SCA players that are having children of their own,
Yep.
and now having to renegotiate what it means to have a child in the SCA, or um, individuals who are the same age as a lot of the second gen who are having children and joining the SCA. And well, what is in it for my child? I know what's in it for me, but what's in it for my child? What can the dream bring now in this day and age to my family?
Well, and I think also, when we were talking about how much things have changed over the decades, right? Um, Youth activities when I was in Girl Scouts or whatever were, sit around and do some crafty things and do some little things, but it wasn't as, kids weren't as demanding. Like maybe they were happier that there was a table of coloring stuff sitting over there. But when you're used to playing with your iPad and doing all sorts of really cool stuff, do you really like color crayons and color pages? And can you do that for more than 10 minutes?
Definitely.
So that's one of my things has always been trying to and trying to come up with more and more things that will take longer than half an hour.
Well, and kind of looking at, it might have been fine to have kids, just coloring, and that's still fine for a certain age demographic,
Absolutely.
but trying to find new innovative ways to really engage them in an activity where they're buying in and wanting to do it and keeping that attention is totally different than it was 20 years ago.
Yeah,
And that's the reality of our changing culture.
it just is.
And there's also, and this is one of the other elephants in the room, when you are a family, have a family in the SCA, and you have a child and two parental units, and the two parental units either have the same part of the hobby of, like, they're both fighters, or one's an artisan and one's a fighter, and things are scheduled sometimes at the same time, there's that negotiation that needs to occur between the two individuals on parenting responsibilities. And that is a hard fact that regardless of what we have for youth activities, that negotiation is still between those parental units.
Yeah. Well, and so my husband doesn't play, as you know. And so when I was first coming to events, my kids were 10 and 14. So they were a little bit beyond that. I have to keep them under my wing every single second.
You could have an event and you have them in eyesight, or at
Right.
home by or back at camp by, like, dinner.
Right. But when you're by yourself and you've got, say, two or three, and one of them's a toddler, sometimes it's easier to do it at home, you know? I think we've lost some people. In fact, I have a very good friend who really doesn't want to play much anymore because she got tired of kind of doing the whole parenting thing by herself, basically. And, when you've got bink, bink, bink kids and you're the one taking them to that porta potty and you're the one doing most of the stuff with them, and then you go to war and it rains for a week, it breaks you.
It does. Well,
It breaks you, and
even the most seasoned player was broken at that particular war.
yeah, that Monstray
So
was
it was just a hard deal.
just awful.
But
Yeah.
when you are that single parental unit with a child or multiple children, the best recommendation that I can give from experience is you find that community who's
Yep.
understands that, hey, I'm an SCA player. I want to play. Here I am. I've got my kid with me. He's dependent on me. He's only 4, but it's just me and him. But I want to do more than, the quick run through Merchant's Row, buy him some stuff, get him some food, and, sit in camp and play the same game. So when you find a community, whether it's
and that's one of the things, like, I saw some people from Artemisia did it perfectly at Great Western War, where one of them had, an infant, basically. And so she was, the one wanted to be able to do more night stuff, and the other one was, the two mothers kind of banded together. One did the daytime mom stuff and one did the nighttime mom stuff, so the other one could go out for a while. And so that works if you can find that. One of the things that I think that we really have a problem with is, and this as well as I do, and especially in like northern Artemisia or anywhere in Artemisia, really, we have small little pockets of groups.
Yes.
And so that little group, maybe there's only 60 people at an event for a day, an event, right? Mm-hmm. And so maybe there's a handful of kids. So are those kids all going to get along? Are they all the same age? Are they all, how do you design an activity for a disparity of age 3 to 15? And then you throw in a couple of kids that sometimes are out on the spectrum a little bit, right? And so they take a little bit different stuff. And it's one of those things. I think that I think it's one of the reasons we have a hard time finding youth ministers as well, because it's really hard. I've kind of changed what I do for events a little bit more because of that age group span, and so I'll try to figure out something that will keep many of them happy. An iron needle sort of thing, where here's a bag of stuff. Go use your brain and your imagination and go make something for the day.
Well, and I think there was a Whipping Winds. This is an event that we have in northern Artemisia that happens to have some amazing friends from Avakal come down to play. But correct me if I'm wrong, you kind of designed a scavenger hunt, and it was almost like a little bit of a team kind of situation where like a younger kid was paired with an older kid, so they all had to work together with that diverse age range on the scavenger hunt.
Yep. I did that because what you'll find is sometimes so that one is a fairly large event, geographically. And you'll find that if you tell them you can work together, well, that's fine. But, the older ones will work together and the middle-aged ones, and then the little kids are there with their parents. And so for that one, I made them, that was a quest for the Holy Grail.
Yes.
And so I had them, they had to have older kids and younger kids on each team. And then they each had a captain, and they had to go around the event and find 10 different stations and play games with different people. That one really went over pretty well, other than it took too long to set up. I had no idea it was going to take that long to set up for the day. So, but yeah, I have to do that again because that was a fun one.
That was a fun one.
Yeah.
Oh, Tony White says this is the first time she's heard of the idea of having family activities rather than separate youth activities. Having the separate youth activities kind of turned into everybody kind of almost doing this like, hey, here's my kid. I'm going to go do something else. And well, that doesn't work because one adult and 25 kids, not okay.
Well, okay. And so, Her Majesty said it best. This is not a babysitting service. It really isn't. And because of that, because even though if I have two adults there and maybe one other parent, we are not necessarily set up for the ratios of like daycare stuff. This is not a daycare thing. And so
getting that parent and the child involved.
Yeah, it is really difficult. But the having family involved thing, I think, is a really, really good idea. And what I was just thinking about is, remember that clue game that they did at Hell's Gate?
Yes.
Okay, so the Brotherhood came up with this sort of a clue game, but then they also did like a scavenger hunt thing where they had not a scavenger hunt, but like a relay race.
Yes.
Where you had to have a herald and a fighter and a service person and a whatever. You could do that with families. You could say you make that you had kids and adults with them, sort of thing.
Definitely.
Huh,
Hmm.
interesting. I like the idea. The thing is, some of the best things that we've ever done at events were completely just impromptu sort of
Hmm.
thing, and then sometimes it's something separate. So like, Sam, um His Excellency de Hood, always had really good ideas for like his birthday parties and stuff like that. So some of those events are really good. I like the events when we have a central courtyard, so the kids can all just kind of run around in the middle of everything and be sort of kept an eye on. It takes a village, right?
It does.
So, you know, that one Northern Summer Fair that we had, where we had that main huge courtyard right in the center of everything, and the kids loved it, and they were never out of anybody's sight. And then
Well,
that ended the being the wood one.
it did, but at the same time, like when you have an area that the kids can be kids
Yeah.
and they know they knew that they were like the center of attention,
Yes.
and like you can watch certain different age kids step up their game
Yeah.
and nurture the other kids, and as parents we're just sitting there, oh my god, this is amazing, they're incredible, they're helping my kid and my kid's helping that kid,
Yeah.
and oh my gosh, and they're running up to the parents, and the parents are getting excited about it.
I might have to do that again. We're gonna have to buy another cord of wood.
I think we can make that happen. I will chip in.
So that event, just for anybody who's watching, we had an event in like this big pasture, and the only wood available was cottonwood, which I am highly allergic to. So
A lot
my
of people are.
wonderful, yeah, lots of people are. And my wonderful friend Sir Rothgar went and bought like a half a cord of wood and had the guys come and dump it in the middle of the courtyard, sort of thing. And then he proceeded to get out his axes and convince the kids, a Tom Sawyer, look, kids, this is really fun. Look, we're going to chop wood. And then he proceeded to, like, he taught them how to make embattlements. He taught them how to make a raft for the river race.
Yes.
We taught them like proper range rules, what hold means, and proper safety. And pretty soon, like you were saying, the older kids were teaching, hold, you're not doing that, don't be messing around. And
That's not
everybody was all
safe.
about safety. It was crazy. We had one mother walk over and say the blood, remember, the blood goes on the inside of the body, not the outside of the body.
Uh,
But for the
Kids are
most part,
kids. But at the
they
same
knew where
time,
the kids were, and they were right there.
at the same time, parents also need to be reminded that blood stays on the inside of our body because
Blood stays on the inside of a body. And if this is, that was a completely unsanctioned youth thing that
that just happened.
happened. And it was just sort of organic, and everybody there became youth officers basically, because we were all kind of watching what the kids were doing. But the kids had so much fun and they learned so much. And the palisades they built, and I mean, they
It
really
was
learned a
impressive.
lot. It was fun.
Yeah. Dana in our chat here has mentioned that it's difficult for younger children. They've got two toddlers and deciding who has to watch them when they want to fight and do service. So that's that parental exchange. If
Yeah.
it's between the two of you, like, hey, who's gonna to be with our child? And it's not babysitting your child. Who is being the parent in charge at that moment between the two of you? And are we equipped to bring them to events and do that and still have a good time? Because we don't want our partners ever to not feel engaged in the ESC when they're also playing. We don't want them to feel left out. And yet we also don't want to be left out. So finding the dynamic that works best. And if at this time it doesn't work because you just can't make that transactional agreement, that's perfectly okay too. But know that there is a place as a family for both of you and your children when you're ready.
Mm-hmm.
That it
That's what
is
I
a
would say.
family.
Is I hope that that doesn't keep you away forever. Toddlers is really difficult because, I mean, like go chop wood, that doesn't
They
work.
can't do
Iron
that.
needle doesn't work. I mean, there's only so much you can do with toddlers, and I can't imagine my kids at toddler age chasing them around.
Um,
But I do think that, if you can make it work, it's still really fun. But I also think that one of the questions that has come up in one of my youth groups is, do we schedule kids stuff when nothing else is going on? Or do we schedule kids stuff while other things are going on as a diversion for the kids so that the parents can go do something, sort of thing? And again, that's okay until you dump 25 kids on one poor youth officer. That doesn't work, right? So you
no.
have to gauge that. But one of the things that came up was a suggestion of maybe a more youth centric, like one camping event a year that is entirely youth centric.
That
And
would be
so
phenomenal.
that all the parents that don't normally get to do stuff or have to give up stuff when they go to events with their kids, it's a youth centric event. And
So you're taking your family to this event to do things for your children,
right,
with your children,
right.
so that they can enjoy the experience
So they can do
catered
it.
to them.
Well, and like if you're doing youth combat, one of the last times I saw us do youth combat, all of the parents were off doing King's Championship and Queen's Championship, and the kids were over here at, it was at a coronation, and so the kids are over here doing youth combat, and their parents can't see them because it's happening at the same time. And me as a parent, I don't necessarily want to sit and watch my kids stitch, but if they're putting on armor and fighting, I want to go watch that, right?
Definitely.
I was at an event in Ontier where they brought all the youth combat people, all the kids in armor into court and
Like
treated them like
processional.
they were they processed them, and they had heralds and they did the whole, like they were the fighters. And those kids were beaming ear to ear. They had such smiles on their faces.
That's my dream job, is to herald for children.
Yeah.
Like I want to herald a youth processional into an event, at an event, whatever it is.
One of
Gonna
my
make this
favorite
happen.
things has always been youth court at Uprising when we used to do it.
In our kingdom, for a long time, when there was this event, Uprising, their majesties and their heirs would hold literally a court for the children, where all the children sit down in front of their majesties, their
The
the
children of the
excellence,
populace.
the populace, and all the parents would be along the back of the court, because the court was not for parents. This is kids court.
Kids court.
And that would be when they would award all of the youth awards, which in Kingdom of Artemisia is called the Griffin's Pride. You can only get it up to age 16. Once you're 16, you're no longer eligible. And they would have candy and stickers and prizes. They would give out these awards. Yeah, I know Timmer's still grumpy about that, Cal. His Grace Timmer cannot get a Griffin's Pride.
And
If you've been
no, he
awarded
cannot
one,
have one.
you don't give it to Timmer. He can't have it. It's the one he wants. He can't have it. Over 16, regardless of that cherub-esque smile. But Kids Court is the best. And
the other thing that I think is really fun is the princess tea that they used to do.
Also amazing, where the queen and the princess will have a tea for children, and the kids could ask questions of them and have snacks and drinks with them, and just phenomenal. And I know they do princess tea and queen's tea for children in different kingdoms, not just in Artemisia.
Yeah.
I'm positive they also do kids court elsewhere as well. I'm sure that possibly Atenveld, they do that.
I just think anytime you can make the dream for one of those kids, they're going to be more likely to stick with it through the difficult years that we lose them, like Therius the Hilarious, who is in college and a rock star. And, I can barely drag him to an event right now, but it will get better again. 19 is a difficult time,
Well,
Mom.
they're kind of, those milestones emotionally. As you grow, you're fine kind of at an event until you hit the toddler years. Then you get a little bit better, and then you start to hit that anywhere from like 9 until 14 can really be that pivotal time where either they absolutely love it and want to do everything and they can't do anything, or they hate it so much they swear it off forever. And then they'll hit that 16 to 18 and they're suddenly like, oh yeah, I'm going to do all the things because now I can fight rapier and I can be authorized for, heavy with parental permission, and I can dive in and I can, do more. So there's kind of those transition years where the youth kind of get stuck momentarily and almost feels like they get left behind a little.
Well, speaking of COVID, though, I mean, I think that that's like looking at my son, not to be so personal about it, but in specific, about the time he was finally able to start getting in armor and fighting, COVID hit. And, and then there's also, I think that for some families, there's probably well, this is your thing, Mom. And I want my own thing, sort of thing, and so carving out that niche where you're not, your dream is your dream and not your mom's dream, right?
Definitely. And then there's, situations where you might have a very neurodivergent youth. Like Izzy knows me and she's known my son. My son's on the spectrum. He has sensory processing issues, and he would go to an event and he'd want to go, but then it would be just too much and he would just lose it. Or he'd spend the event with earphones on and he would be busy watching things to help calm him, and he'd be stimming to help self-soothe, and he was perfectly happy and content at an event doing that. And now that he's an adult, and unfortunately the term is masking, now that he can kind of mask better, he interacts a little bit more, but at the same time he is now unabashedly like, hey, I'm overwhelmed right now, I need to go be me and I need to do this for myself. So as children, that's really kind of that hard navigating too. Is it worth it to bring my son to an event or my daughter to an event or my child to an event, knowing that they may have some neurodivergency that other children don't understand or can't cope with?
Well, and that goes to another thing that we were kind of talking about before the show started with the consent culture thing.
Yes.
Some kids are, and especially coming out of COVID, right? Because they've been so one-on-one and now, and I fear that just in general, what is going to happen to our kids, because, there used to be this whole thing where back in the 70s, the 80s, give your Aunt Joe a hug, give everyone a hug. This is so-and-so, give them a hug.
That was forced to hug.
Was forced to be overtly physical with people sometimes, and Uncle
now
Joe wants you to sit on his lap. Isn't it funny that you need to sit on his lap and he's going to tell a joke? And it can be completely innocent, but now it's forced and pushed. And now kids know it's not okay, and parents know it's not okay. And we still have people of certain age that don't get it and don't know it's not okay. And so I think that we do have some people who are not coming and bringing their kids because of some of that kind of stuff that goes on as well. And maybe it's a blessing in disguise with the COVID thing, because now everybody gets the whole idea that you don't have to touch anybody if you don't want to. You know,
Yeah, like
you do know you can stand back and go, hey,
not a hugger. Boom.
not a hugger, thank you. You know,
Well,
my friend,
we go up to each other, hugs, elbow bumps, fist bumps, or air hug.
right. Or I have one friend who, given the day, will give me a really, really warm hug, or she will go, having a day. And I go, okay, you know. And if I
And
can
that's
go in
okay.
for one, I will still usually give her a good hug, but you know, try not to go
Well,
because
and it's changed to the point where, like, back, for example, when you first started playing, when there were, individuals who had children in the SCA who looked older than they were, but definitely were not, like, we're talking like Sharpie, on the forehead and arm saying she is only 13 or
yeah,
he is only 12,
that was one of my favorite events, that whipping wins, that they walked around and put the teenage girls' age in Sharpie on their forehead
and
because it was dark
and the
and there's lots
children
of trees.
and the children were okay with this. They
Yeah,
understood why, and they consented to their parent doing this
yeah,
for their protection.
for their
But
protection. But well, so this is a non-SCA story, but I'm at the beach one day years and years ago, and my cousin is there, my younger cousin, and this guy who's older than me, like 8 years older than me, is standing there, and he's like, oh, wow. And he thinks she's 16, 17. And he's just drooling over her. And I'm disgusted, but I kind of decided I was going to shove it in his face. And so I went, oh, you like that, huh? Yeah. She's 11, you freak. Like but my cousin at 11 looked like she was 16. She's Samoan and she's built. She's beautiful, but she looked like she was 16 or 17. And to completely inappropriate that he was even ogling the 16-year-old, right? But the idea that there is that period of time where you can't tell how old that kid is, right?
depending on the individual, you don't know.
You don't know. Girls especially. And so, it I don't know. I know that it's difficult with your kids. I know taking them to events, especially camping events and things like that. I mean, it really does take a village. And I think that's one of the things that we're blessed with in the SCA, especially in Northern Artemisia, is that we're all one big sort of family. Everybody knows, my kid is not going to get away with anything because everybody knows who my kid is.
Well, and sometimes, it is the youth that are up to the shenanigans.
Oh, yeah.
And not the adults. Yeah. Oh, Aslack. Exactly. Guys, if they are clearly not in your age group, WTF, really? Yes.
Truly. Absolutely.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it goes both ways. Like, gals.
Oh, yeah.
Don't be cougars.
Don't be cougar.
If they're not legal, they're not in your age range, leave the child alone.
And hands to yourself.
Non-binary, leave them alone.
Hands to yourself.
Age appropriateness.
Really. Yeah. Consent is a huge thing. Making sure that that's okay. Definitely. And also, when we're talking about that, so going back to, a bigger war where you have like a youth tent.
Yes.
Make sure that if you are that kind of a parent that you think, it's okay, my kid can be at the youth tent, make sure that the person who's being the youth minister has consented to being the parent for your kid all day, because that happens too. And that's just not, we had one at a Great Western War years ago where there was a kid there all day long, unattended, all day long. He was like 9, and he was obnoxious. And I wonder why, but he was, unattended all day long. And we were ready to close the tent. And in walks this person with a pointy hat who's, oh, so happy and thankful. And oh my gosh, you're just gracious. Oh, you guys do such a good thing. And this is a great service you have here. And it's like, this is not the service we're
You're not a
providing
daycare.
Whereas there's not what this is supposed to be.
We would have loved it if you would have came with your child and participated in XYZ activity.
Or, maybe check in a couple times during the day and make sure they have water and food and
know where the bathroom's at.
bathroom.
And that you take them to the bathroom yourself.
Yeah, because there is that. So consent of the youth minister to, I definitely don't want you bringing your toddler in a diaper bag, to the youth tent sort of thing. So
they don't give me children. I run away with the rest of the brownies to
children taste really well.
Well, they're just fun little changelings. You just swap a baby with a fairy child. Nobody knows.
Oh, I have friends that would like the supplies.
I mean, I like a baby fix where, you get a hold of them, but the second they start getting cranky, it's like back to mama, daddy.
Yeah.
Take your thing back. I broke it. It's mad at me.
Yeah.
No, I love kids. But having been there, I do know it does take a village. And consent definitely, asking for help too. Don't expect help. Yeah. Ask for it. If people are able and willing, they will provide it. But don't count on it. Don't show up to an event and assume.
Yes. Because for the most part, I mean, if we are running some kind of a youth tent or something like that, we've got 2 people there. So we have the 2 deep rule covered. But that doesn't mean that it's okay to just dump and run either sometimes,
Exactly.
A lot of things are designed around you engaging with your kids too. We like that.
Well, and sometimes the kids' activities that are family activities actually are pretty cool. Like there was at an event I went to, it was a youth activity or family activity, and it was actually like learning about tinctures and colors for heraldry. And it was like, man, had I learned that when I was 16 and first joined the SCA, I probably would not have drugged my feet forever. And then when I finally did learn colors and tinctures, then I'm like, wanted to complicate it. But the youth family activity made so much more sense. And it was like, heartache could have totally been dissuaded had I, at 16 gone to this youth activity class and learned this with my mom,
Yeah.
Like things that would have made more sense and make it click. So, we're getting closer to the end of the hour here. Before we jump into some shout outs, Izzy, do you want to talk a little bit about why you're so passionate about youth and retention and what's coming up in the future for you?
Sure. Thank you. So I obviously passionate about youth, and I messaged you or Cal or somebody about poking an idea on doing a show on youth, and it of course grew into its own show instead of just a guest spot on somebody else's show. So starting February 28th at 7 p.m. Mountain Time, we will kick off a once a month show on youth activities in the SCA. My first guest on February 28th will just be talking about is Dame Catherine Ainsdale of Lancashire. She is Order of the Pelican. She's the Kingdom Youth Minister in Caid. And I've worked with her at Great Western War a couple of times. She's fabulous. And we're going to talk about just youth ministry in general, how one becomes a youth minister, the background check mythology that it's way easier than people think, that sort of thing. And then we're going to once a month, the last Monday of every month, for the most part, except for the we're not doing it Memorial Day weekend. We're doing it the week before. But other than that, it's the last Monday of every month. We're going to go through youth combat. We're going to go through youth rapier, the Yafa program, Page schools, second gen people. We have a couple of second geners. In fact, Artemisia has our upcoming king and queen who will be coronated crowned in just a few weeks, are both second gens and are going to be reigning together. So we're excited about that show. We'll be visiting with them. And so, yeah, I've got people from all over the known world lined up to talk about it. We're going to hopefully mostly talk about just like what can we do post-COVID.
And can we do better?
What can we do better?
Us Artemisians, we like to do it better.
We like to do it better.
But the whole known world all can do better.
Absolutely.
Perfect. All right. My shout out this week, I'm going to do my best to say it. Nasasia, who also goes by Tasha. She is a member of the Order of the Laurel in the Kingdom of the East. She is by far one of my favorite people to follow on TikTok. She posts amazing videos on Norse personas and shows you how to do everything. I'm not a Norse persona, but geez, this woman makes me want to totally make a Norse kit. She's phenomenal. I also want to do a shout out to Sir Adi in the Kingdom of Artemisia, who by far wins the best way to make people volunteer for Bardic competition ever. A bunch of us show up at an event not prepared to enter Bardic, and suddenly, and he's not even the person running the Bardic, he has pulled in a dozen people to enter this Bardic competition on the fly, not ready to like tell a story, sing a song, tell a funny joke. And everybody started their bit with, so I came here, I wasn't really prepared to perform, I hadn't planned on it.
I hadn't planned on performing today.
And then Sir Adi, because Sir Adi has a charm and a grace about him that makes it hard to not want to join in and help in whatever he's asking, because he is so gracious about it. So my shout out is to him as well this week. Do you have any shout outs?
Well, Sir Adi's one of my very favorite people completely. I mean, I just love him. So, and he is actually slated to be a guest on the show later on. So thank you for talking about him. I actually have two really quick people that I would like to give a shout out to. One is, again, from the same event that we just attended together, Lady Adamnair from the Shire of Stanworm, because she found us during COVID, jumped in with both feet. She's just a little clone, like we like those kinds of people that do that. But she's
well, it's almost like she'd always been there, because that's how what a natural SCA player she is.
She absolutely, and she did a youth heraldry class specifically designed for youth at that event, and I was so excited to see that. On top of, she was the one who was supposed to be running the Bardic that Adi got everybody.
And I can honestly say, a week later, one of the youths who attended her youth heraldry class, yesterday I was in their company and they were working on their SGA device using what they had learned in her class, which was awesome.
I love it. She is going to go ahead and get the background check so that she can do more youth stuff, but she wears, like some of us, I don't know who, wear so many hats. I don't know if we'll get her an actual officer,
I took a hat off before the show started on purpose.
I had to take many of them off. And then so the other person that I would really like to give a shout out to, this is a personal one, and this is my very, very, very dear friend, Lord Ulrich von Violette. And the reason why is just because he has been, from the time I met him, just fabulous to me. He hauls my stuff around. He sets my tent up. He does anything I ask of him. If I go to an event and I have forgotten something and I need somebody to run to the store, he will drop it and go do things for me. He has just been fabulous. He's a wonderful friend, but he just takes very, very good care of me. And if it wasn't for Violette, I wouldn't be as happy. Let's put that for sure. So.
And Ulrich von Violette is a second gen.
Yes, he is.
I watched him in the SCA grow up from babe in arms to where he is now, which makes me feel very old. But he embodies the best of what it is to be a member of the SCA.
Absolutely.
He has grown up embracing it. And it's nice to see that someone who has been brought up in the SCA and had those positive experiences has definitely blossomed and bloomed.
He is our first second gen Brotherhood of the Black Unicorn fighter as well. And my favorite thing is he wears his first tabard was his baby bib.
Baby tabard. It's like,
and it's like this, and he wears it as a belt favor. So I love it.
Perfect. Well, I'm going to go ahead and talk about what's coming up next that you can check out. So coming up next on Coffee with Cal on a special time and date. Cal, if you pop that up there, on the 26th, which is a Saturday for us in the States, at 8 p.m. Central Time, Cal will do coffee with Sir Elaine and excellent Fiametta about implied power. It's going to be awesome. I've been waiting for this show with so patiently, so excited. And then coming up next on Road to Retention, I finally, dun dun dun, get to interview Lady Sophia. Yeah. She is a wonderful good friend and has a lot to talk about. And hopefully you'll join us while we talk about all the different things on her road to retention. If by any chance once again, we're going to plug the show, because on 2/28, 8 p.m. Central, a look inside youth activities, episode 1, youth ministry, the position that seems to be the hardest position to keep filled, or you'll never leave that position forever. So please check it out. If you want to support Kal-bardr's Corner, you can go to patreon.com/KK Productions. Drop what you can if you're able to. If you aren't able to do that, but you still want to support, you can go to Redbubble and buy some amazing merchandise. They have the onion sticker. This is the sticker that is
onion.
I have to have. I need my trauma onion sticker. I've got to order it this weekend. I before I go to bed tonight. If you want to see what Kal-bardr's up to on TikTok, you can catch him at Kal-bardr. He's kind of funny, if I do say so myself. Want to see what I'm up to? You can check me out at Gina Kitts at TikTok. I'm really slow at posting some of my drafts, so it kind of every so often you get a dump of like a handful of them at a time. But it'll be great. So I want to thank everybody. Thank you, Isa, for being on here. You know that we never get to hang out enough, and if I gotta have you as a guest on my show so I can hang out with you, I'm gonna do it. I
just got an hour of undivided Rahmut time. I'm thrilled.
Well,
that never happens.
We'll have to make time while we're busy running 2 vigils.
Yes.
We'll just stand next to each other and
we will.
And I want to thank everybody in the audience. Thank you for the comments. Thank you for the input. I'm going to go through that and add for future notes for future shows and make sure I pass that along to Isa for the youth shows. You guys have been great. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful night.